we've just had all this time for the purposes of our cameras and for the audience. If you won't mind introducing yourself and what role you had in the film.
Yeah, my name's Rob, and I'm the writer-director, and also played a shadow under a doorway, which is probably my most important role.
Hey, I'm Kate, and I was the producer.
No cameos for Kate.
I was the ghostly figure in the Mars.
Oh yeah, there was a cameo for Kate, actually, yeah, forget that.
Nice meeting you again, everything. So, I've got to ask, how does it feel seeing it on the big screen? I know you've obviously seen it on many big screens, to my understanding. But how does it feel to see it on a big screen with an audience? And like, does it do everything that you wanted it to do from an audience's perspective? Do you get them reactions and things? That's a lot of questions, sorry.
I think it's good. It's obviously good. I mean, I'm always kind of nervous up until the first kind of line of dialogue, because we've had incidents in the past where our first film played and there was no dialogue at the festival, and that was absolutely panic-inducing. So I'm always kind of stressed up until I hear that first line, and then I'm kind of like, all right, well, it's playing, so that's one thing. But it's good, you know, we love to hear what people think of it, and festivals is the best place to do that, because then people can chat to us afterwards and tell us what clues they picked up on, if they guessed the twist and things like that. And so, yeah, it's always nice. Yeah, stressful but nice.
Yeah, exactly what Bob said. I think this has probably been one of the biggest and best screens we've seen it on, so that's been great, to be honest with you, and just to be part of the festival has been fantastic. So yeah, like I said, it's always quite nervous coming to these things and putting the work out there, but it's always nice to hear people's thoughts and comments, so thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. So in terms of when watching it back, and you mentioned you find it nerve-wracking and things like that. Do you ever find yourself watching it and, do you ever watch it and think, I wish I'd have changed this, or I would have done this specifically, or you did this perfectly, if that makes sense?
I think that's the only thing I do when I watch it, is notice everything that still needs doing. We've spent the last few weeks removing light switches with VFX, and so I spent tonight looking at the VFX that has been done and checking it, and then noticing more light switches. They're everywhere. I didn't realise there's still loads to do. I thought we'd done them. So that's all I do watching it at the moment. I think we're still way too close to it to kind of sit back and watch it properly. Yeah. I think that'll be a while yet. So yeah, it's still kind of a work in progress for us.
Yeah.
So, like, indie films don't always make the cinema. We discussed this on a few occasions now. But do you ever think, obviously, from creating film, do you make it specifically for a cinema, or do you make it for, like, a platform? I'm talking so as independent. The online streaming service seems to be the way that a lot of people are going these days. I was just curious if you built it around that, because for those people that don't know, I believe that such things as Netflix and Amazon have different setups and requirements for certain films to be shared on their platforms and stuff like that.
I think with all this time, I think Bob was very clear on what he wanted, and he kind of really didn't care what anyone else thought to a degree. He had a very clear vision from the beginning, and it was a lot of kind of back and forth and talking about the actual story. Always open to feedback, but at the end of the day, it was, okay, that was a good idea, or oh, no, you had. I think you had a very clear idea of what you wanted, and you made something that you wanted to make. I think, I think that was one thing that stuck out for me in the process, was we weren't out there to necessarily please everybody. It was something that we wanted to do, and we were very keen on sticking to something that we wanted, and I think that happened, and hopefully in the process we've created something that people enjoy, or at least wanted to watch. But yeah, no, obviously it's nice to hear what people think, and we want people to like it, but we made something for us, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, I think so. I mean, the kind of, we anticipate it will end up on streaming, but we didn't kind of aim it for that, if that makes sense. I always had in mind that we were going to play in the cinema, because the plan was, and what we did was, we would just hire a cinema for the cast and crew screening anyway. So even if it's terrible and it goes nowhere, we'll see it once in the cinema because we'll just pay to put it in. So we knew we were gonna watch it there. So that was we didn't have a much of a plan after that. We hoped it would do well in festivals, and it's got into a couple, which is nice. But yeah, like Kate says, we made it for us, and we were like, we're just making it for that cast and crew screen, and then anything that happens after is a bonus.
Well, I personally think it's a fantastic film, and with that, I sort of wanted to ask about, some people obviously don't know exactly what a director specifically does, or a producer specifically does. I was wondering if you might be able to share how your roles brought the film to the screen, and your journey to that.
Yeah, I mean, how long have we got?
Go for it, we've got all the time in the world.
So we planned the story together, and then I wrote it. I did an MA in screenwriting a few years back, and I used this as my final project so I could get plenty of feedback on it. In terms of directing, so when we're kind of planning it and coming up to the shoot and on the shoot days, I can see the scenes in my head, so all my role is just translating it to everyone else. I had Jordan, my DP, who was there. We had a great cast and crew around us, Emily Rose and Dan, Emma, and it's just translating the atmosphere and the story to them. And it was one of those films where I think one of my key roles on set was just letting them know whereabouts in the story and the chronology of it we were, because it is quite confusing. And you think it's confusing to watch, it's even more confusing to read. And so most of the time on the day I was just like, this is exactly where we're at this point, this is what you're feeling and your energy, and they took it from there.
Did you film in chronological order then, or was it out of order?
Oh, no, it was totally out of order, yeah. So it was quite tricky for the actors, and for example, the reception room, there's a lot of scenes there, and just because we don't have massive budgets, the way we filmed it was we shot all the wides at once, then we went and did mids on Emily, mids on Darcy, and so we would do the wides for each scene, then the mids for each scene, and so it was quite confusing, and so my role was just keeping them on track of where they were. And then Kate does all the logistical stuff.
Yeah, so I think when we were looking to bring this all together, I think one of the big things that stood out was getting the right people.
Okay.
And once you've got the right people, then you can trust them to go and do what they do best. So we had incredible hair and makeup, we had incredible actors, crew. I mean, we could just really trust people to go and do what they do best. And I think once that's in place, that's where you see things come to life. And that's when, you know, you can plan and plan and plan as a producer, but you're going to get snowballs. You know, things are going to happen on set that you can't necessarily plan for, but then once the right people are in place and things are happening, then it is just a case of making sure things are ticking over, dealing with things as they arise, and yeah, so with independent filmmakers, I'm sure other people who have made films are aware, you do wear a lot of hats, and we were quite lucky that people were happy to just muck in and get involved and help out where they could in different areas as well, so yeah, I think just trust the people to do what they do best was a big thing that we needed to get down. I think we were lucky enough to have that, to be honest with you. Yeah.
What's the point of no, let me finish. What's the point in your careers and everything where you feel like you've learned something new that you've brought into doing this film? So what have you picked up along the way that has basically made you better at your role for the film?
I mean, so much that we learn on every film, and then we've learned on this one, and we can't wait to go again to do better and prove that we can do better. I think the main one for us on this one, after our first feature, was that marketing will give stuff away. So in an early draft, the fact that there was vampires and a time loop were big twists in the film, and some of the big twists, but we knew that they would give that away to market the film, because that's what they're going to market it as, a vampire time loop. Was it Peter from Romford who said it's, what did he say, Bram Stoker's Groundhog Day or something like that? Yeah, which is a great way to sell it. And so we kind of went in and wrote those twists in for the audience to, experience, but then we added more later on that wouldn't get spoiled, hopefully. So that even if you go in knowing half the twist, there's more to kind of excite you.
Yeah. Do you remember your first day on the set? And how was you feeling in that particular moment? Did everything go to plan on that first day?
Yeah, the first day was Grace falling off the gates, because we shot that about 2 weeks before everything else, because that was the only thing I was really unsure about, because we ended up using some VFX for that, and I don't like using VFX because I think it can just tear you out of the film. If it's not really good, I think it snaps you out of it. And so that was the only scene I was kind of unsure about how we were going to do. And so we went and shot that 2 weeks before. We shot as much practically as we could, and then we had our VFX guy, or one of the VFX guys, Liam, come and do like a photo scan of Rose on the day, and then he basically made that in the next 2 weeks. As my thinking was, if it doesn't work, then we schedule another day for the end of the shoot, and we get like stunt teams in to do it, and we pay a load of money to do it. But luckily VFX worked, and hopefully no one really noticed it, or it didn't take them out of it. But yeah, that was the first day, and everything else went pretty well, and yeah, it was an alright first day, I think.
Yeah, I think we were just keen to get going with it because we'd been planning it for so long, and it was quite nice because we had quite a small crew that day, so it was like, right, let's just slowly ease our way into it, and everyone was just excited. And then when we had that day done, it was like, right, okay, let's get on to the big houses, and everyone was just really good energy, and it was just a nice way to start the shoot, I think. Yeah.
So from your point of writing and bringing it to screen, how much of it was either changed or removed from the original script to the screen?
Do you mean like in the edit or on the shoot? Or?
Yeah, so like when you were looking at the script, did everything in the script make it to the final cut? Was there a lot cut, or was there extra scenes that were added, like improvised or anything?
There was quite a few scenes, not necessarily cut, but trimmed down, just to be kind of flashes of memory. So like when she goes and sees Darcy and she's like looking for Con, because that was a whole scene originally. And when the hunter, Dean, is showing her pictures, that was a whole scene. But like the first pass of the cut was 2 hours, and I just think 2 hours it's a long time for an independent film, and I think the shorter the better, because then if people aren't enjoying it, at least they've only got like an hour left. So we wanted to try and get it down for like an hour and a half, as close as we could. And so we realised those scenes were just slowing stuff down, and we were like, we're playing around with memory and time. We can just chuck them in as flashes, and it will probably work better.
Yeah.
But I don't think anything was added. We shot for 23 days. We didn't do any pickup days. We managed to get it all in at that time. The only pickup shot we got was the blood drop, when in the first montage. There's a close-up of blood dropping into a jar, and we just shot that in our kitchen a couple of months later.
Yeah. So like with the script then, what inspires it? What brings it? What brings it to the screen? So where does the story come from?
So when we were talking about doing another film, Bob turned around and went, "I want to do something with time." I went, "Okay," and then it evolved with vampires, and then it evolved from there. And I think the root of it was the time element. You were so keen to do something in that, and then it just evolved from there, and it evolved for quite a long time. The first synopsis we had is very different to what we ended up with. So we played with the idea for a long time before we came up with the actual final script, and yeah, I think that was amazing.
Okay. Was there any specific scenes that stick out for you? That like
Bad or good?
both. Let's go with both.
Can't answer the bad one. I don't think there's any there. I like the kind of pre-confrontation scene at the dinner table, where Dan says, I didn't think you wanted to actually eat. I thought you were here for the usual. I like that scene because to me it feels like you know something's coming even though you're not quite sure what. There's no bad scenes. I'm not. Yeah.
I think the one that stood out for me, and I've said this before, was, and it was just because of my memory on set as well, was that first time I can't give too much away because I've just remembered it's being filmed, was in a flashback moment, shall we say, in a more happier tone. It was the first time Dan came on set and worked with Rose, and it was like, oh, okay, let's see how this goes, because it's their first scene together. And when they called action, like when Bob called action, they just went with it, and it just really worked. And I think it was such a happy moment in what would, I know there was a lot of not necessarily happy moments in the film. I think that stood out for me just because it's at the end of the film and it's where a lot of kind of a lot's revealed. I think that stands out for me just because I can remember being stood there thinking about, oh my, you know, this works, this is nice. But that was just my own personal memory, I think. That's why I liked it so much.
How did the cast come together? Like, in terms of like how you found them, did they approach you, did you approach them?
A mixture, to be honest. So we've worked with Emily Rose a few times. She's done a few shorts with us, and we knew that she would absolutely run with it, and she would just embody Grace, and she absolutely did. So we knew that, you know, we like to work with people once, and then maybe on shorts, and then if they really work, then we can often have them in mind for a you know, a feature or a bigger role. And there was no doubt that Rose was gonna play Grace for us. Actually, we did a casting call for a few, so we got Darcy, who plays the younger housekeeper, through casting call. The other housekeeper, older one, she's called Emma Pallant. She came through a recommendation to a friend. And Dan, who plays Elias, it was a funny one because he wasn't originally meant to play Elias. It was Joe Milson, who is down in Romford next week. He's a friend of ours, and he initially was going to play Elias. And then an opportunity came up where he just couldn't turn it down, and we were like, go, don't worry about us, go. And he was like, you know, I know plenty of people, and he put a few faces in front of us, you know, and said, definitely work with him, he's great, and he ended up being a bit like a casting agent for the role, and then that's how we came across Dan. And I tell you now, Dan is absolutely incredible to work with. He is one of the biggest cheerleaders for the film, and he was great. So it was actually kind of like a happy accident that happened. I mean, it's a shame we didn't get to work with Joe, but Dan was incredible. So yeah, it was a mixture.
So when you start shooting a film, and you start with your scenes and everything, what's the things that you focus on? Do you do things like storyboarding to plan all the process?
Yeah, sometimes we storyboard. I mean, I know where I'm going to shoot and where I'm going to cut anyway. So sometimes if it's a tricky one, I'll storyboard, but I don't storyboard the whole film. So George, my DP, I've known him and worked with him for years, so me and him work really well together. And so most of the time we'll kind of go to locations before. We'll always do recce's, and we'll just kind of plan out where we're going to shoot and what angles are. And then we'll schedule it, but I shoot myself as my day job, so we try and kind of plan the angles and order them on lighting, because that's the thing that slows you down the most. And then on the day, me and George will have already talked through where we're going to shoot and what angles, and it's kind of easy really. And then we block it through with the actors, explain how many times we're going to do it, how many different shots, and then go for it. But I'm not a very good drawer, and it takes so long that it feels like it would end up being a waste of time if I storyboarded, because it would take so long, and then people won't be able to tell what I'd drawn anyway. So then I'd just have to explain it anyway. So yeah, it's just kind of cutting out the middleman really.
You know, from a director's point of view, how do you find the feel of the film? Like, from cinematic elements, colour grading and stuff, do you have that in mind when you're at the beginning, or is that something that just comes in post?
No, I definitely have it in mind. I know how I want it to feel, and so, yeah, I'll know how I want it to feel and kind of how to get there. But a lot of the time, like, heads of departments will ask you something, and as a director, you might not know the answer, and then what you've got to do is you just got to go with your gut, whatever you think, or you ask what they think it would be, because if you've done your job, they should know the vision and know what you want anyway, and so they will probably know the right answer for you if you don't. And so it's a lot of back and forth, and then kind of just making sure everyone's on the same page as you for the vision, and just kind of trying to steer people along with that. But yeah, I know how I want it to feel well, like when I'm writing it, basically, I kind of picture it in my head as I'm writing it, and it kind of stays throughout, basically.
Do we have any questions in the audience? Yep.
Hi there. First of all, congratulations. Thoroughly enjoyed the film and didn't see the meaning twist at the end, so
Oh, that's good.
congratulations there. Just for the amount of time you're shooting and chronological order and all that, once you finished the filming, what was the editing process like, and kind of roughly how long did it take you guys?
We had a rough cut in about 3 weeks afterwards, because I edit for corporate stuff as my day job, so I'm quite fast. And so we shot half the film, and then we had like 2 weeks off, and then we shot the following half. And so I'd edit the first bunch of days in that 2 week break, so we could see stuff going in, and then we kind of changed some scenes because we knew what was coming before or afterwards. And then, yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. We shot November 2023, and I basically spent all of December just editing it. And I think we had like the 2 hour cut 3 weeks afterwards, and then we were just editing it for months after that.
He didn't sleep.
There was another question as well, I believe, yeah?
For starters, it's a bloody masterpiece. It's awesome. I mean, like, both of us thoroughly enjoyed it.
Did you get that on the camera? Do we need to mic you up and say it again?
Mic for you. My question was that, with how, it's more of a techie question, is whilst you're shooting, have you done any like pre-test days to sort of like figure out like a grade while you're shooting, so you know what you're doing? So you know what it looks like while you're doing it, or is it sort of you've got a rough idea and then you go for it in post? And I'm really interested to know what you shot it on and what glass you used.
Cool, yeah.
Definitely your type of question.
Yeah, I'm a total nerd, so I like these kind of questions. So we shot FX6 with Samyang Zines. So, you know, decent cameras, but like kind of low-end cameras, basically. We didn't do a custom grade or anything. I did a grade after we'd shot that I put on like the whole film, and then I tweaked from there. But no, we didn't kind of shoot with a custom grade. We had planned on it, but I just think we never kind of got time to look at that and do it. And so me and George, we chatted about it. We knew kind of the lighting style of, I just wanted like daylight blasting through. And so we kind of went and just winged it for the shoot, really. I knew where lighting positions were, but we didn't manage to test or do a custom grade. And we were actually quite surprised with some of them. We didn't have enough light for what we wanted. Like the big ballrooms, we had 2 aperture 600Ds blasting through, which we were like, that'll be plenty, that'll light the whole thing. But there's so much kind of dark wood in there that it just swallowed the light up, and we were like, yeah, this is quite dark. And so a lot of it was shot at the second native ISO on the FX6, 12800. That saved us. Like if we were shooting on something with like an 800 native ISO and nothing else, I think we would have struggled in them big rooms.
It's fair, it's the reason we switched to FX3s, because they're tiny, it's the same sensor, but yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. We did an A7S3 as our gimbal cam, because it's like the same sensor and it was just a lot smaller. So we had 2 FX6s rigged up with Cine Primes, and then A7S3 rigged up on a gimbal, which actually we just used a Tamron 2875 2.8 with a Black Pro Mist 1.8 on the front, and it's your fault. But I can't remember which shots are which, so it shows how good that glass is. It's crazy.
I hear numbers, I think I'm learning something. Do we have any more questions?
Question here.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, again, everyone's already said it was absolutely fantastic film. Me, myself, I was so emotional at the end. I was wiping away tears and being really gross over here. But I think a big part of that was also the music at the end and throughout. And I just want to know, how does that come about? Does the music composer, does he work with you during or after the edit's complete? And how does that really, because that's a big part of the film. So does it come about, is everybody working collectively, just the process there?
Yeah, so the kind of main composer, Teo, who did most of the score there, once we had final cut, we did a spotting session, so he came around to ours and we watched it through, and we just chatted about when we thought music should be and what kind of thing it would be. In the rough cuts, I'd put some temp music, which some people say you should do, some people say you shouldn't do, but it was mainly the montages. I think they were they were hard to watch without temp music, so I put some on that. But yeah, so me and Tayo watched it through and kind of chatted where music should go, and then he went off and he would send stuff across, and there'd be a bit of a back and forth, but he pretty much nailed it straight away, didn't we?
Yeah, yes. Teo was he took it to another level, and he worked really closely with Max, our sound designer, and they were in contact with each other quite a lot just to make sure there wasn't a clash in the sound design and the score. So they worked really well. Considering they live in different countries, they did really well to make that happen, to be honest with you. In regards to the songs, so there's a couple of songs in there. We reached out to an artist called Martin Craft, who he did the song, you know, in the ballroom where they're dancing and he asked us to dance. So that song was already out there and we wanted it. It was quite a process to get that. It took months because he was on board, he wanted it to happen, but the song was actually owned by Universal, isn't it? So it took about 8 months for us to get hold of this song, and we were just relentless. I think we ended up getting blacklisted from them, I don't know, but we were so relentless asking them and, you know, getting to the right person. Eventually it happened, which was great. So we managed to get that song, especially because the artist wanted it to be involved as well. And then the end credit song as well, Alice Faye, incredible. She's an emerging artist. She's from up in Scotland. So there was obviously the score was a big part. Obviously the songs were by artists as well, individual artists, and yeah. So. And
there's also an extra little snippet of score that Teo didn't do. That's in there when she's kind of sneaks through and looks through the door and Darcy is sewing the gown and Eliza there. That bit of song was Leon, who sat over there. Put your hand up, man. And so he wrote that, and I wanted to fit that in, and so we kind of used that as diegetic as they were listening to an old record player, so that's Leon's bit as well. So mostly Teo, but a little bit of Leon as well.
Can I just add that's Bob's little brother, that's why we're really proud.
Do we have any more questions?
Just a quick follow-up. Is there any relation or influence from Pride and Prejudice just because of Darcy and somewhat the time period? Pride and Prejudice at all?
I'd love to say yeah, but no, sorry. You could lie if you want. Maybe Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, was that? That's the same film, right? Yeah.
I believe there was a question in this direction.
Yeah, I just wondered how long it took you to light the film.
To light it?
Light it.
Felt like hours every shot, yeah. Or to write it or light it? Write it.
Light it, yeah.
Well, we spent a lot of time on the synopsis, like months on end. And like Kate said, the first synopsis, I found that the other month, and it's so different. It's really different. And so we would just kind of, my process is that I like to work on that first. So we would write it down and then leave it for a few weeks, and then we would just chat about it in car journeys and kind of come up with different ideas. Some bad, some good, and you kind of stick with the good ones, hopefully. And then when it came to writing it, it was a few months, because it took me about, I think, 7 months to write the first third, and then I just kind of went a bit mad one night and ended up writing like the second half of it in one night. I did like 18,000 words or something like that in one night, and so I realised that, you know, if I kind of got my finger out, I could have done it about 3 days, but yeah, about 8 months I think to actually write the script. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions in the audience? No? Is that them all? That's them all. So what I wanted to ask was, what did you learn about yourself when you made this film?
I'm really bad at when I'm ill. Like the first week of one of the big blocks, I was so ill, and oh man, most of the time if I get ill, I'm just comatose on the sofa. I can't even get a cup of tea. And so having to direct this was just brutal. That first week was just brutal. So yeah, I'm just not very good when I'm ill.
Put me on the spot here.
I always love to do this.
I think what I learn about myself is just not being scared to ask, whether that be a location. You know, they can only say no. So I was a little bit nervous about asking about Allerton Castle, because they're a wedding venue, so we had that booked in for a good 18 months before we shot, just because of availability, and also we wanted to make sure we had enough time to get everything perfect. And when you actually pick up the phone and you speak to people, and just, you know, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Because for me, like working at Elton Castle, that was a big, you know, a grand place to work, and yeah, we managed to get it, and they were lovely to work with, and I don't know what I was worried about. I just, yeah, it happens. So just ask the question, and you can only get a yeah or a no. So yeah.
Stunning location and brilliant on camera. It's stunning. Obviously, filmmakers will always criticise their work. It's something that most of us do. But I am intrigued to find out what you see on the screen and what is the best thing that you are proud of from the film, in the film, sorry.
The whole thing.
Wow.
I can't pinpoint a particular thing. I think you're so when you're actually shooting, you're so like on this wheel of just making sure you get everything done, and you're so like focused on, anything can go wrong. There's the worry that someone could fall ill. Or I think you're just so on the wheel of it, so it's hard to pause, I think, when you're in that moment. But I think looking back at it now, it was bringing the people together, and the way we've worked together. I'm really proud of that. I think we created a lovely family atmosphere on set, and that's down to the people that are involved and just the way it ran. So we ate together every night around a table, and we socialised, and we essentially, in some parts, we were living together. So I'm just proud of and just to say that the people we have now worked with are really good friends now, and yeah, I suppose that's what I'm proud of, is just bringing that atmosphere together, and we're a unit, we are a Relic team, and yeah, I'm really proud of that.
That's how it should be. It's quite nice to hear that as well, actually,
Yeah.
in all fairness. Yourself?
I think one of the things that made me most kind of surprised and happy was, I think it was like after the cast and crew screening. I've chatted to obviously a load of the cast and crew since, and a few key people, few key cast and crew, said to me, on the shoot we had absolutely no idea what we were going for, and what was some people didn't understand the script, but they just kind of trusted that I knew what I wanted, and so I'm buzzing that people kind of put that faith in us to just be like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go for it, and we'll see what happens. And they're all happy with the product. So it's I didn't realise on the shoot kind of how few or how largely some people didn't know what was going on, and so I just felt great that people put that trust in us. It kind of made me feel really good.
So my last two questions for you. My first one is, what's next for you, and what's next for the film, if you're allowed to tell us anything?
Yeah, for us, we're working on the next few films, and we're going to see which one kind of happens first, basically. So we're planning 2 or 3 projects in very early pre-production, and we're going to see which one we can get going first for the film.
For the film, we're still on the festival circuit, so yeah, we're off to Oslo soon, which is exciting. First time we've been away and been to a festival abroad, so that'll be quite nice. And there's a few conversations happening, but nothing we can really say just yet. But we're hoping we'll have news soon-ish. But yeah, when we do know, we'll post on our socials, on the Relic Instagram page and your Instagram page. So if anyone is interested, then hopefully we can say soonish. We'll see.
Well, that's great to hear, and I do wish you the best of luck with that. I always like to finish on a fun question. You might have had one of these in the past, so I'm going to see if it's the same one. Hopefully it's not. I did this one earlier, but I think Kevin might have done this in the past. Have you had the Muppets one in the past?
Yeah.
Oh, you've had the Muppets one. Oh no, if you've had it, it's fine. We'll just pick a boring one. We're going to a desert island. You can only pick one film. What are you going to take with you?
Interstellar. Yeah. The music, the score. You could turn it off and just listen. Yeah.
Do we get one each, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we've got to argue over what we take. I'd take La La Land, that's my favourite film, and yeah, I'd take that, for sure.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing your film. And ladies and gentlemen, please give these people a round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.